Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. In this episode, you will hear part one of my conversation with Jennifer Sparrow, Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at City University of New York's School of Professional Studies. More links and information about today's conversation can be found on Digication's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Full episodes of Digication Scholars Conversations can be found on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. My guest today is Jennifer Sparrow, Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at City University of New York's School of Professional Studies. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Hi, Jeff. I'm really good. Great to be here today.
So I know I got a little formal there. City University of New York School of Professional Studies is a long name, but it's usually referred to as CUNY, City University of New York, and SPS for School of Professional Studies. Does it sound right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll sort of talk about CUNY and SPS moving forward from here. Actually, Jennifer, I don't know if you remember. I think you and I met over a decade ago because you were at Medgar Evers.
Yes.
Which is the institution that you were at prior. Medgar Evers is another CUNY schools. CUNY has 5 schools, something like that. And in the city, of New York, obviously. And you were at Medgar Evers before, and you were a professor there, and I think you held some administrative roles as well.
Yes, I started out as a professor in the English department for about 10 years, and then I moved into the Office of Academic Affairs as the Dean for Academic Affairs. And that was where I really got involved in ePortfolio in academic affairs. We participated.
And that's how we met.
Yeah. We were in the Making Connections project with LaGuardia and all the other colleges. Yeah.
It's a long time ago. LaGuardia and Bronx Community College. So we went back to the days of Brett Einen from LaGuardia and Jordy Getman and Howard Walk.
Yeah, it was a great experience. And I'm still friends with so many of the people I met in that. It was just a phenomenal faculty development experience. And Judith is, I'm forgetting where she is now, the new school, I think, but she teaches part-time for SPS also.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
yeah,
great. You
so
was at LaGuardia as well. Yeah. She was at LaGuardia and what a great group of colleagues and some of them alum of this group. Yes. I feel really honored and privileged to have been involved with all of that. And in fact, our friends Jordy Getman was a Digi Scholars Conversations on season 1 episode. I'm looking up 17. And Howard Walk was the season finale of our season 2.
Was it a cliffhanger?
None of us get paid for this. And Howard at this point had retired from being the provost of Gutman Community College. I feel a little bit old, Jennifer, but you look the same. How?
Bless your heart. And I don't even have enhanced my appearance on.
So I think that when we met, we were doing, portfolios, and you were at Medgar Evers. And what were some of the things that you were looking to do? Like, what brought you to want to do ePortfolios at the time?
At Medgar, we were, I'm trying to think of we were working a lot with the education department, and they were very interested in portfolios for the teacher education candidates. So there was a lot of interest there. And I think also from kind of a freshman year initiative too, as a way of setting up something for new incoming students so that they could collect their, examples of their work and really sort of be able to look back on their growth at the end of the experience.
I know that we're going to talk about what now you're doing at SPS, with portfolios later. And I'm sure must be a pretty amazing journey to, see all of the different sort of uses and and things that have pop up over the years. You want to tell me a little bit about SPS? For those who are listening who don't know anything about SPS, because it's actually a rather unique school within the CUNY system. You want to
Yes,
talk
it
a little
is.
bit about that? Yeah.
Sure, yeah. SPS was founded, it's one of the newer units in CUNY. It was founded in 2006 to serve the New York City community, both people who had some college and no degree and were looking to come back and finish a bachelor's degree. So we've always been at the undergraduate level, we've always had only degree completer programs, no full-time first-time freshmen. And we had, and until very recently, still had the only online programs at CUNY. And then there's another whole part of SPS, the Office of Professional Education and Workforce Learning, that does a lot of kind of contract or custom education and a lot of work for the city. So different city employee training initiatives. So, I mean, the college was really founded to serve the adults in New York City, to serve the workforce community, the city sector, and really to be kind of different than the rest of CUNY. A word that is often used that I have to say I'm a little tired of at this point is to be nimble, um, because nimble can get a little bit exhausting after,
Well, if you're being nimble
after
for 10
10 years.
years,
Yeah. Jump here, jump there, go over.
Yeah.
But so now we've got, I'm ballparking this, but I believe it's a dozen undergraduate online degrees and a dozen graduate degrees. And we've been since 2020 and the pandemic. We were really busy because we were asked, since we had already been doing quite a bit of faculty development for the university. We have a program called Preparation for Teaching Online. And in the summer of 2020, we really scaled that up. And over the course of like May through August, trained about 2,500 faculty from across CUNY, all went through this workshop. So we went from offering it, maybe 4 times a year to about 25 to 40 faculty, to offering these really jumbo experiences that we called the main workshop site the hub, and then each hub would have been attached to about 15 to 20 kind of sections. So it was really an enormous undertaking. But it was, I enjoyed it. It was really fast paced and innovative, but we got to work with a lot of CUNY colleagues, and it felt really good to know that when everybody had to pivot and offer online courses in fall 2020, that the people were prepared, or at least better prepared than they would have been otherwise. So that's a way that it, in some ways, I almost feel that SPS is kind of, we will be a service unit sometimes for the university in that way and in other ways.
I think that's tremendous, and I have heard really good things about it. I know faculty members who, sort of credited to this, opportunity that SPS offered as being, if it wasn't there, they wouldn't know what to do. They were completely stuck.
Yeah.
And I think that we sometimes forget, because I work in technology and you've been so prolific in your use of education technology for so long, that there were still many faculty members up until the spring of 2020 who said, I will not use technology, or I don't have to until I retire, so I'm not going to.
Really resistant. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a sort of I guess a byproduct of this horrible pandemic, in that it it's sort of created an opportunity for everyone to have that experience, which is really, which is actually remarkable that you were able to pull that off. Or all of us were able to sort of pull that off I guess to a certain extent that you can't say everyone pulled it off, maybe, but it's by and large had been successful given the circumstances and the sort of short ramp up time, right?
And it's, I've read articles, not just about CUNY, but everywhere that, the attitude from faculty and from students toward online learning has really changed. And in general,
Yeah.
it's much more positive now. And at CUNY in particular, it seems that students are really looking for more online courses now. They want them, which makes a lot of sense to me because CUNY, we're not a residential college. People who go to CUNY tend to be busy working, and it's nice. Maybe they don't even want to take a fully online program, but to be able to fit in some of their courses online, it makes a huge difference. To be able to be home,
Right.
at home and doing your work with your kids around instead of having to be at school.
Right. That's also the thing about living in New York, right? I mean,
Yeah.
things are by miles, not doesn't seem that far, but traveling 3 miles in
Hmm.
New York can take 45 minutes,
Yeah.
and multiple trains, and 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 and
Right.
all kinds of all kinds of unexpected hurdles that you have to jump through, um, and and um, and that flexibility is certainly, you know,
Hmm.
I think I think initially it feels like that it fits that, like you were saying, professional studies sort of band of students, who
Hmm.
are maybe working full time but need to, but would still like to complete their undergraduate degree, or graduate degree.
Hmm.
Um, but I think now we're seeing more even in sort of what would have been considered people who would go to a 4 year undergraduate, full time degree. They're
Right.
also saying, "Hey, hold on a minute, I don't have to go through this um, residential sort of experience, and maybe I don't want to have that experience." People
And
are all
I
from different places.
And I think even my daughter is at a residential college, and sometimes she'll be like, I just didn't really feel like getting up and going, putting my clothes on and walking across campus. And so
Yeah,
sometimes those kids want to, like watch and participate on Zoom.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
we also, last year, we did another experiment that I was really interested in, which was the HiFlex. And so
Mhm.
last summer we did, in the fall, we did HiFlex seminars with colleagues from around CUNY. And so people came together and tried to learn about HiFlex and map out what would a HiFlex, course plan look like.
Well, why don't you say one sentence about high flex for
Oh, sorry.
anyone who's
Yeah.
listening who doesn't know? Yeah.
HiFlex, hybrid flexible courses. And in the kind of perfect, ideal HiFlex world, the course would have three different modalities options. It would have a fully online, asynchronous kind of track, if you will. It would have a hybrid track where someone would be able to come in and sit in the live classroom and participate and interact with the teacher and classmates, or someone could participate live, synchronous, but be remote, so that when the teacher is in the classroom, the teacher is interacting both with people sitting in front of her and also the people who are online, and ideally either through chat or I don't know, through
Sure.
technology that works really well. The online
Mhm.
people can talk to the in-person people. And the really best part of it for the students is that the students don't have to choose. Like every week or every session, they could decide, oh, it's Thursday. I feel like I'm going to go to class today. Maybe then I have to go on a business trip. So I'm going to do everything asynchronously for a couple of weeks. And, the learning outcomes, the experience, it's all meant to be equal and equitable across any of the modalities, which is great for commuting students. It's great for people who have disabilities. Who it was really challenging for is really hard for instructors, because that's on the instructor side, you're kind of building out and running. You're almost teaching 2 to 3 courses at once. So that the instructor workload and the technology challenges really I mean, I think there's still interest in it. And in my heart, I think that that's what's going to be the future. But the technology is really challenging. And,
Yeah,
as a prof, you kind of feel like, what do I have to, watch the
right.
students here, look at my computer, look at the ones in
Yep,
front of me. It's really hard.
right. It's almost like as there's an additional performative requirement by the
Yeah.
instructors. But I will say that um, being a professor in some ways has never been easy. For some
Right.
people, that whole public speaking part is right. I mean, for some people, public speaking itself, is more fearful than death,
It
right?
always
And
made me
then
nervous. It
right, so
did.
there's that, and then
Mhm.
there is there's so much that you have to deal with, and I actually do think that maybe it's not going to be for absolutely everyone, but I think that a lot more people has that capacity than
Mhm.
they think. And um, I think that this idea, though, that making something that is accessible to people who are not able to come to
Mhm.
campus, physically, is incredibly liberating
Mhm.
because like you were saying, it could be about a disability. It could be about financially. There were some other reasons, maybe because they're parents and they can't leave the children at home, by themselves. They don't have childcare. It could be for lots of different reasons.
There's lots of interest in this too in colleges in rural areas where it's
Sure,
just, you
rural
live 100
areas,
miles from the nearest.
right? Absolutely. You're too far.
Mhm.
It could be, it could also, be about, transcending the boundary of countries, and having to, visa and moving, and all of that stuff too. So I don't know. To me, it definitely feels to me that it makes sense, and I don't know if I think that the nature of that profession, the teaching profession, I think you're right. It's the future of it, in that it will eventually become something that if you want to teach, you want to be a professor, you want to work with
Mhm.
students, it is a skill that you're going to need to
Right.
get, and I think you get used to it over time.
And I think students are going to really just expect it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I know that exactly what you mean by your daughter saying, hey, you know what, I'm not feeling it this morning. But there's also, I mean, I've actually heard some students who would say, I do so much better when I look at the video. I
yeah.
don't go to the class. I look at the video at 2 times speed.
Hmm.
I got an hour worth of lecture in half an hour, and I actually get more in that half an hour than if I had been there for an hour. And some of it, I mean, I think some of my children, they are the high school age. I have some high schoolers in my family, and um, three of three of them have ADHD, and I think that for them, listening to something double speed is their speed.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
prefer that. In fact, if you do normal speed, their mind's wandering. They're like, "Come on."
I'm kind
um,
of like that too. I don't have a lot of patience with videos.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, and being able to like scrub and like
Mhm.
and see, like can look for things and stuff. It's really. I think it's liberating. And I don't know. I feel like that the teaching sort of modality is, there's a certain amount of performance that always had to go into teaching, I guess, in many
Mhm.
ways.
Right. You have to be sort of, jazzed up and have
Yeah,
be energetic and go in and,
absolutely,
kind of put
absolutely.
whatever your mood is aside and just be ready to,
You
be
you've always
on.
had, there's a performative
Mhm.
aspect to it, has always been. I feel like that honestly, even writers these days, if you're just a writer and you're just a writer, if you're good on writing, books. Actually, many times now, if you have the ability to do an awesome audio version of it, and you can be, the reader in
Yeah.
Audible, it's preferred. It's great. And so there are there are lots to think about in this more multimodal world.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to go to and by the way, I should do a little plug on SPS. Actually had a good representation here at Digi Scholars back in season 1. Karen Gonzalez was,
Yes.
had this great conversation with her. She's amazing.
She
And
is. She
you
really
have a
is.
lot of really great people working for you, Jennifer. How do you do this? Does this have a lot to do with leadership, or does it have also something to do with the sort of culture and the setup at SPS? It almost feels like you get to invite people from sort of the best of from all the different schools to come to you.
Yes.
Is that right? Is that how it works?
It might sound like we're stealing or poaching.
Well, you got poached first.
Yeah. Yes, I did. I guess everybody kind of did in the very beginning because
Well, you have to
we
source it from
had to come
somewhere,
from
right?
somewhere. I think we get people who are maybe creative, imaginative, want some space and want the opportunity to try new things and do new things. I have to say for myself, when I came to SPS, well, even when I was at Medgar, I started out as a member of what was called the consortial faculty. That was kind of the core group of people who formed the first degree and were sort of the faculty body. And Howard was part of that. Jordy was part of that. Joe
I remember.
Ugaritz.
I remember. But you still held your position at your respective
Right.
institution while being sort
Mm-hmm.
of this consortial faculty at the.
Right. Like we were teaching kind of as an overload or
Mhm.
participating maybe for some reassigned time that was compensated back to the college. And then as the school grew in, I think it was 2011, I had been going to the consortial faculty meetings and people were talking about, we're growing so much. We really can't manage general education anymore. We need someone to come and oversee that part. And I thought, oh, that'd be fun. I'd like to do that. So I said, I'd love to do that job. And
Yeah.
then they said
Then you got
yes.
a
And
job.
so I came, yeah. So I came over to SPS full time. But since then, starting from general education, I ended up kind of launching an orientation program that now, it serves big numbers of, all of our new freshmen or new students twice a year. We have an offshoot on that for our visiting students. We have another really interesting experience that we created called Test Flight that is a free 1 week online learning simulation. So people who want to say, what's it like to take an online course, they can
That's so
register for
awesome.
Test Flight. Yeah, and we can just let them be in this course. And, it has assignments, it has discussion boards. They get a chance to try out the tools and just be in an online course because what we were really frustrated with is, trying to show a static picture of Blackboard or, even trying to show a video or anything. It's just flat and it doesn't really give the experience of being an
Yeah.
online student. So
Right.
now Test Flight runs about 10 times a year for
Wow. Yeah.
prospective students. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then the Open Education Resource Initiative, that's in my portfolios. And we've got almost all the gen ed courses are zero textbook cost. We've got more than 50% of the undergraduate courses are zero text. All the sections are zero textbook cost. And that's another CUNY-wide initiative with some really generous funding that has come now for about 5 or 6 years in a row from New York State. And then in 2014, I started a credit for prior learning program that now has really grown. So all of that is a way of saying that it can be kind of overwhelmingly nimble to be in a kind of a startup institution, but there's also a lot of opportunity because there's not already somebody doing that, or there's not someone to say, stay in your lane, and
Mhm.
our founding dean, John Mogilewski, was very open to new ideas. And, if you thought you had a good idea, he would generally support it. So it's been great. And we've brought a
So
lot of great people.
you talked about a number of things. By the way, I would like to come back to the leadership part later too, because I'm not letting you off the hook, because there's something pretty special about that, because you attract really good people around you. But I wanted to, I mean, you talked about general education, credit for prior learning, open educational resources, which, it's usually called OER, sort of this low cost to free textbook, situation. Um, so a tremendous amount focus on sort of student needs and student success. And of course, schools should do that. Why shouldn't they do it? But
Right.
I mean, we say that, but then at the same time, we have many, many institutions in the world who has been operating for a long time in the model and in the modality that they've been used to, and that's because for generations that's been that way, and then the last boss said this, and they are going to do the same thing, and they also went through as students and as
Right.
coming up as a new faculty member, they had to do these things, so everyone else has to do the same thing, and it just kept getting passed on. So in some sense, we get a little bit numb with those. We take certain things for granted for no real particular reasons. Textbook is a really good, example of that, right? For so
15
many
weeks
years.
semester. Why is a semester 15 weeks?
Yeah, there's all kinds of things like that. But to me, one of the things that is interesting is textbook. I absolutely get you're saving the students money, allowing them to, have a chance at succeeding in a course without having to sell their kidney to buy textbook.
To buy that $200 textbook, yeah.
Yeah, and that's one textbook. And if they take a full course load, we could be talking about $1,000 a semester.
And it's actually, I think it's swinging a little bit the other way now, the pendulum. But then the textbook was also an online course cartridge, and so you couldn't even buy a used textbook because the textbook would come with the code that would allow the student to access the homework platform or whatever.
Bypass that whole thing, right, and so you can't even do secondhand and all this stuff. And then, but so I get that, you're trying to save the students money. You're making it more possible for them to do that. And of course, I think it should be the case. But I would even argue a little bit further. Why are we so fixated on textbook at the root level? I mean, look, there is certain part of education is about content, is about, needing to gain certain amount of content, and for an instructor, the need to push the amount of content, transfer it over to you. But I think that we can all agree, especially sort of post Google world, that there was always going to be more content than you can ever consume.
Right.
And so, the ability to digest things, the ability to learn becomes suddenly a lot more, like a lot more the real skill that we need, as students. And so the idea of textbooks being sort of the majority of someone's cost, or such a huge percentage of the cost, doesn't make much sense. And the fact that textbooks has to take up, like I feel like when I used to teach and there's like an area that says, what's your textbook? And I said, I'm not using one. And they go, what?
Yeah.
Like, are you insane? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I don't see that. I feel like that I don't. We're not going to be focusing around, a textbook, and it's okay. It's we're still going to do fine.
That was what
and
actually,
in fact, it's going to be better.
That was what actually got me into teaching online in the first place. Is I was teaching English literature and Shakespeare and Homer, and there were just so many amazing online resources out there, really cool websites. And I thought that's, why would I buy the Norton Anthology, right? Why would I make students buy the Norton Anthology when I could bring, kind of curate this really great collection of stuff? And now I'm seeing really interesting things being done, as you were talking about, with letting the students kind of make those connections and curate their own set of information. And in the history classes. I know that thinking about Jordy and Kate Culkin, who also teaches for us, they're doing things with, primary sources and then two different opinions of the primary sources that were contemporary, and, really letting the students engage with the arguments and the issues as they were being presented at the time, rather than being sort of regurgitated and presented. Yeah, it's really.
I love that. I actually went to a conference session or workshop by Jordy and Kate about that, and it was amazing because it focuses on sort of developing the interrogation skill of the students, being able to take pieces of primary sources and make sense of it and try to figure out what's real and what the significance is. That's a skill that you develop. You don't just read about in a textbook, because it's experience of developing that skill that is part of the learning experience. If someone told you that the answer to that, actually that would suck, because you just wasted an opportunity that they would have had to be able to figure it out for themselves, which is the learning experience.
Right, and the critical thinking that we're always talking about, right? Yeah.
I think that's really fantastic. This concludes part 1 of our conversation. To hear part 2, be sure to subscribe to Digication Scholars Conversations on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. The Digication Scholars Conversation series is brought to you by Digication, a technology platform powering the most innovative e-portfolio programs in K-12 and higher education. Our website can be found at digication.com. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thanks for tuning in.